required confined space. What is permit to work? What is permit to work?
And is authorization to do any kind specific kind of work.
Very good. Authorization to perform any job at on site. It could be different job, and there are different types of permit. We will discuss it later. What is confined space?
Enclosed place.
Closed place, very
Enclosed place is also our confined space. Is floor hole or floor opening?
Floor opening, because the person can.
Very good, very good. Because in confined space, someone has to go and perform the job. So it from floor hole, it's not possible. Confined space is over floor hole. Very good. So confined space is being discussed in OSHA standard section number 146. OSHA defined confined space as large enough and configured so an employee can enter and perform the job. So you can see the picture, for example, our drain channels, for example, our pits, for example, our cable pits, some other kind of tanks, silos. These are all our confined space. The main purpose for confined space, the main ability of confined space is that it must be large enough so a person can enter into it, right? If a person cannot enter into it, then we will not be considering as a confined space. In confined space, a person or an employee shall enter and he will do the required job. Confined space is not the permanent occupancy. What does it mean? It means that confined space is not the office for anyone. You cannot say that my workplace is confined space. Even if you are going to perform the relevant task in the confined space, but still confined space is not a permanent workplace. You will go to perform certain tasks and then you will come back. Confined space is considered as one of the most dangerous activity. In every every month we are going to listen the news that many of the workers, they have trapped into confined space. Sometimes they are cleaning the tanks, sometimes they are doing some other activities, sometimes they are doing cutting, welding, grinding activities, fabrication jobs in the tank. And due to lack of safety precautions, due to lack of supervision, they are not be able to perform their job conveniently, and then they got stuck into confined space. NC standard, American National Safety Standard Institute, define the confined space an enclosed area large enough and configured to allow a person to enter. Must be a person should go inside and he can perform tasks. So this is being defined by NC standard, which is also an American standard. So there are some requirements which are needed to have the confined space. Some of the characteristics of confined space include contains or has potential to contain hazardous atmosphere. Whenever you are entering in the confined space, the problem is that you don't know what is inside the confined space. Sometimes there is a light visibility. It's possible from outside you can see, but sometimes even if you have the light, you cannot see what is inside. So there are many hazards which are possible inside the confined space. Confined space has also the problem for engulfing. Sometimes you can enter into the confined space, but you will not be able to come out confined space easily. You can stuck due to lack of oxygen. You can get unconscious due to any other slipping or converging walls. You can get stuck onto it. So there are many other hazards which are associated with the confined space. For example, mechanical hazards, electrical hazards, naked wiring are possible, biological hazards are there, claustrophobia issues, like those people who are having fear of dark phobia, like that. So there are a number of hazards which are associated with the confined space, and that's why OSHA requires you that whenever you are entering into the confined space, whenever you are needed to perform any job in the confined space, you have to take the written authorization, which is our permit to work. Even here in the kingdom, Aramco also requires you to get the confined the permit to work whenever you are going to perform any job in the confined space. Some examples of confined space includes uh, uh, grain silos, trenches, tanks. These are all our confined spaces where persons they have to go inside and they have to perform the relevant requirement. Whenever we are going to enter into the confined space, we need to monitor some parameters, especially the hazardous atmosphere. The atmospheric testing is one of the very important and very necessary requirement for confined space. We have seen that most of the accidents or most of the people who are going to trap inside the confined space, it's due to the atmospheric testing. So what are the requirements for atmospheric testing? That there are automatic gas detectors are available, where before it was like detection tubes only available for each tube for each type of gas, but now multi gas detectors are available, which you are going to use to perform your activity into the confined space. uh, you are you will remain outside, but you will put your hand inside maximum, and then you are going to measure the level of the gases. So what is the level of the gases which must be available into the confined space so you can enter and you can perform your task? It's like flammable gas, vapor or mist in excess of 10% of its LFL, lower flammable limit. Airborne combustible dust at a concentration that meets or exceeds its LFL. Atmospheric oxygen concentration between 19.5 and 23.5. And any other atmospheric condition that is immediately dangerous to life and death, uh, life or health. So confined space, we are going to measure all these atmospheric testing when we are going to enter into the confined space. And it's not only the one time well we are going to measure this, but according to the severity of confined space, according to the requirement, we are going to measure these atmospheric testing in every half an hour, sometimes in 1 hour, sometimes every 2 hours. So depending on the situation, depending on the level of gases, we are depending on our level of our activities which we are going to perform inside the confined space, we are going to measure the atmospheric testing. Now, what is hot work permit or what is work permit? Work permit, as I told you, that the written authorization to perform any of the job, any of the task, and if it is a job which includes ignition, we call it hot work permit. See, work permit classification is not being defined by OSHA or any other standard. It varies from company to company. Our permit to work is only a control. Which kind of control is it? Elimination, substitution, engineering control, administrative control, PPE. Our permit to work is which kind of control?
Maybe all of them.
No,
Administration.
administrative control. Very good. Permit to work is the written authorization. Any signages, work instructions, procedures, policies, these are all our administrative controls. But as far as the requirement of permit to work are concerned, we can apply elimination, substitution, everything we can apply inside while we are filling and we are meeting the requirements of permit. So, as I told you, there is no set rule that what are the types of permit to work available, but most of the time in companies there are like they have the cold work permit whenever they are doing any maintenance job, the normal replacement job like valve replacement, bulb replacement, or any maintenance activity which does not require any ignition source. It's a simple activity, so they are going to use the cold work permit. And if they are going to perform the activity which includes the fabrication, which includes the source of ignition, in this case they have to take the hot work permit. Hot work permit in refineries or in petrochemical companies or in chemical plant are most of the time not allowed, and if you are going to use them, you have to take too much precautions. Even in Aramco, in Sabic, you need to have a work permit approved personnel. So then you can only take the permit and you can get issue. There are the qualifications called permit receiver and permit issuer. So permit issuer is basically your client, those who are allowing you to perform the job, and you as a contractor or as a working staff, you are the permit receiver. When we are talking about permit to work, I'm just giving you a brief about permit to work because some of you are new, you don't have any idea about work permit. And even in our course, it's not the part of our course to work permit, but it is one of the thing which is very common in the industry. So it might be possible that when inshallah you will be developing the health and safety system of a company, so this could be one of your initial step to to have the work permit system in your company, which is a very good control. So when we are talking about permit to work, there are multiple possibilities according to the type and according to your need or scope of work. So we have discussed about hot permit, we have discussed about cold permit. There is another permit which is being used commonly is the confined space, that before entering into the confined space, we need to take this confined space permit, and which contains especially all the atmospheric testing requirements. Then we have permit to work at height. For example, if you need to work at height, so you are going to issue the permit, and then you will take all the precautions, and then you will be uh, working at height. Similarly, it might be possible that if the crane movement is not a common activity in your company, and you are bringing some crane from outside, so crane lifting permit is also one of the requirement in some of the companies. So according to your need, maybe for you only hot permit and cold permit is enough if you are working in a general industry. But according to your nature of work, you can also use and define some other kind of permit just to keep focus. I have seen some companies, they have one format only available for all kind of issues. So because they said that if we have different kind of permits, the people will be confused. So if something is irrelevant, they can write not applicable NA, but those things which are applicable, they can write it. Normally there are 2 or 3 copies which are being issued for the permit. One is the main copy, and then second and third are the duplicate copies when you are issuing the permit. So one copy remains with the issuer, one copy remains with the receiver, and sometimes one copy is being used by the safety department. It is for their record. When we are using the permits, the permits are being issued for limited number of hours or limited time. It's not a lifetime permit that you can do the activities, you can perform the activities whenever needed. Permits are being issued for limited number of, for example, 8 hours. Most of the time it is being issued for 8 hours, and if you need to perform the job which is exceeding 8 hours, then you can have another permit, or you can extend the same permit for up to 24 hours. But after that, you have to get the renew you need to have the renewal of your work permit. And after each 8 hours, you need to make again inspection, that if the conditions are going to be met. Sometimes if we are not going to wait for 28 hours or 24 hours, we if there is a certain change in temperature, if there is a certain change in the condition, then in this case we can also inspect before 8 hours. Before, we can also review our permit before 8 hours. So when the permit is being issued, most of the time we have seen that the safety department, they are coming and they are verifying that you have met all the controls, you have applied all the controls, and time to time they are going to review, making the visit of the site to make sure that you are following all the precautions of permit. Permit is also very good control in a sense that in case if any accident is going to be happen, then you as a contractor or you as an employee, you will not only be responsible, but also the issuer, which is your client or which is your other department where you have performed the task, they will also be responsible. So it's a mutual responsibility for both of the parties, and that's why in big companies it is very difficult to get the permit, because they don't issue the permit until unless they are 100% and more than 100% sure that you have met all the requirements. So if in Aramco, sometimes it takes 1 day, sometimes it takes more than 1 day just to get the permit approval, because they have number of requirements before issuing the permits. So In this permit, you are going to put, sometimes you are going to attach your risk assessment, your JSA, your JHA. Always remember JSA, job safety analysis, JHA, job hazard analysis, risk assessment. These are all same. Okay, don't be confused. For a specific task, we use job hazard analysis. For normal our company operations, we are doing the risk assessment, hazard identification and risk assessment. So you are going to attach the risk assessment, you are going to attach the inspection certificates of your equipment, training certificates of your personnel who are working under this permit to work. So there are a number of documents which are needed to fulfill the requirements of permit, and then they are going to issue the permits. Clear? Any question?
No, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Okay. So what is IDLH? IDLH is any condition that poses an immediate or delayed threat to life, or that could cause irreversible adverse health effect, or that would interfere with an individual's ability to escape unaided from a permit space. What does it mean? That whenever you are working in a confined space, let's suppose that you are being stuck in the confined space and you are not be able to come outside confined space, that situation, that condition where you are not be able to come out of confined space by your own, rather than the other people who are going to help you, or you are using the rescue services to come out of the confined space, this is called immediately dangerous to life or health condition, right? Where it might be possible that you can get stuck and you will die. In India last year, there was a project where two of the employees, they were working on the confined space, and after some time, but they didn't use any rescue services. What are the rescue services we are going to discuss in next slide. So they were working, doing some welding, I think, in the confined space, and after some time they were unconscious. When the person who was responsible for them, we call it whole watch or fire watch, when he went inside to check what has happened to them, so he was also stuck and he was also become unconscious. And so when the project manager, he saw this situation that my three of persons are inside, so he took the risk and he went inside, and within 10 minutes there were 4 casualties were there. So confined space is a very dangerous thing, and that's why we need to apply many controls, maximum controls, or the controls as much as possible. Oxygen deficient atmosphere, if the oxygen which is less than 19.5 in volume, we called it oxygen deficient atmosphere, which is not good for the human. We cannot survive for a long time if the oxygen is 19.5, less than 19.5. If the oxygen is more than 23.5, then again it's difficult for us. Sometimes when you are working in a confined space, the concerned people, they want to apply the air or oxygen by means of oxygen cylinder, which is very difficult, which is a very dangerous activity, because uh, it is very necessary that we are going to have the uh, when we are going to apply the controls, the oxygen, especially when we are doing the fabrication, oxygen is a flammable gas. So when we are doing the activity of fabrication like welding, cutting, grinding, which involve the source of ignition, so the oxygen shall not be used. Rather, we need to use the natural air ventilation system. We call it positive air ventilation system. So which means that the air will remain circulate, and it will, the hazardous atmosphere or the gases which are coming out due to our welding, cutting or grinding activities, they will be going out, and the fresh air is going to come inside. So oxygen, uh, oxygen, if it is less than 19.5 or it is more than 23.5, it's dangerous for the human survival. It is, I will give you the answer. Let me complete this slide. Prohibited condition, any condition in a permit space that is not allowed by the permit during the period when the entry is authorized. Any condition, for example, while you are working on the confined space, or while you are working the hot work activity, any of the special conditions which you have mentioned in the permit that these are not allowed, these only authorized persons are allowed. For example, only static charge free coverall is allowed, or you are going to write that the proper insulated tools are allowed. We call it prohibited condition, that other than these conditions are prohibited. So only limited activity, limited tools we are going to use into the confined space. Rescue service, what is rescue service? The personnel designated to rescue the employees. As I told you sometime in our technical language, we also called it whole watch, right? Whole watch, or we call it this person as whole watch, and sometimes we call it fire watch. If he is a person who is responsible for fire, and this fire watch or whole watch, they are the people who are not the part of the operations team, or they are not the part of execution team. They are the one who will be remaining outside of the confined space, but keeping an eye on the people. They make sure that all the retrieval services are available. So in case of any emergency, they will be using the retrieval services to take out the staff who is stuck into the confined space. So these are called rescue service. What are retrieval services? The equipment which includes a retrieval line, chest or full body harness, wristlets if appropriate, and a lifting device or anchor for use for non-entry rescue of persons from permit spaces. Those people who are working inside the confined space, they need to have the full body harness, and this harness will be connected to the lifeline, and this lifeline should be in control of the person. We call it rescue service outside. So in case of emergency, he is not going to enter inside the confined space, rather he is going to uh, pull them out of the confined space by means of their by means of his retrieval services, for example, uh, anchors, for example, full body harness, and the belts, and things like that. Clear?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
When they apply epoxy paint inside septic tank, don't know the chemical without proper gas. Yes, yes. It is a, yeah, I agree with you, because in epoxy paint we are using the too much enamel. Enamel is also a alcoholic solution which has too much smell. It's a volatile compound, so all the time it remains into the air. For example, we are also using the, in epoxy paint we are also using the spirit, so which is also dangerous for the human consumption for a long time. So you can see this one of the type of how to provide the ventilation to the people who are working in the confined space by means of fans or by means of open atmosphere, rather than providing them the oxygen. In our construction site, as required by construction, if the evacuation is more than 4 feet in depth, we are going to consider it as a confined space. So whenever the people are required to work in this condition, they must have the all the steps which we have discussed to check the atmospheric condition. They are going to check before entering into more than 4 feet of excavation. So where hazardous atmosphere exists or could be expected to exist, emergency rescue equipment must be on work site and readily available and accessible. So these are the requirements for the construction site. If it is more than 4 feet, then we are going to consider it as a confined space. Other recognized hazards of confined space includes electrical equipment. You can see this picture. You will find motor, electrical wires, naked wires. Mechanical equipment is, motor is our mechanical equipment. Electrical wires are our electrical Wires are our electrical equipment. Then we have visibility issues. As I told you, sometimes there is no lightning inside the confined space. Biohazard, sometimes there is a snake, sometimes there are some other insects which are available in the confined space. Claustrophobia, because of low lighting there is a very dark inside the confined space. The more depth or the more in length the confined space, which means the more darkness. If you don't have the openings available, then the confined space are going to have more dark. Sometimes noise, radiations, and temperatures, these are all the confined space, right? These are all the possible hazards other than atmospheric condition. These are all other hazards which are possible in the confined space. Permit to work we have already discussed. So you can see we are going to provide the positive uh, air pressure. So here this is the air which is taking from the atmosphere and is being provided into the confined space. This is air monitoring. As I told you that there are different kind of detectors are being used. In old times, we were using these kind of detector tube. For each gas, there the detector tube was different, right? But nowadays, then we had the gas detectors for each type of gas. There was a separate gas detector, but now the latest technology, it's like we are calling them multi-gas detectors. So multi-gas detector, it's like our mobile phone size, and it is going to detect all the possible or all the general gases of confined space, and it is going to give you the reading so you can measure. Also sometimes they are, if they are advanced quality, they are also going to give you the beep if the oxygen or any of the atmospheric gas is going to be reduced. They are going to make in red color those gases which are less than as per their requirement. So there are different types of instruments are available, gas detectors are available. Sometimes we have the fixed gas detector. For example, this kind of fixed gas detector you will find too much in the industries, especially in oil petrochemical companies, refineries, because this is going to detect the gas. Sometimes it's like H2S gas, sometimes it's ammonia, sometimes it's CH4. So these, there are different gas detectors which are being used for according to the need of your company. So but in with the safety officer or with the permit issuer or the receiver, we have the multi gas detector most of the time, right? Sometimes there are now mobile gas detectors are also available, which are being fixed with the human. So they are going to guide you that how much is the gas. So if any of the atmospheric gas which is going to be reduced, this the gas detector which is fixed in your body with your pocket, it's going to be starting the beep, so you will know that this is now the gas is going to be reduced. This is the simple pattern of confined space permit. You can see that this is the kind of permit which we are going to use. If you go into the Google, you can find different types of work permits. Every company has their own format. There is no international format available that is being issued by OSHA or some other thing, some other international regulation. So as I told you, they require you to have the permit available, but how it be the design and how many types of permit you need to have available, it's up to your scope of work. So what is confined space?
A small area,
Enclosed,
difficult to go in.
enclosed area.
Uh-huh. An enclosed area which is designed to perform any task, but this is not a continuous occupancy of any person, right? This is a
Right.
limited time area. We will go for limited time and then we'll come back. IDLH.
Immediately dangerous line.
I
Or
don't
health,
I
Immediately
don't
Dangerous
dangerous.
to life or health.
life
Yeah.
or health.
yes. Or sometimes you can also say in short term, I don't like him, I don't like her, right? IDLH. As for confined space entry procedure, combustible gases must not exceed 10% of LFL, LEL at any time. So is it true or false? Yes, guys.
False. False.
True.
True.
Go back to our flammable gases must not in excess of 10% of LDFL. So this is our
True.
so this one is our true answer. LFL and LAL are almost the same thing. Sometimes we have low some material or some gases, they have lower explosive limit. Sometimes they have lower flammable limit, right? So depending on the property of material, we are going to use this terminology, right? Any question?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's save the video for confined space. Can you see the screen
Yes,
and
sir.
this sound?
Confined or enclosed spaces are potentially dangerous places. They may be tanks, silos, pipes, or anywhere you could be trapped. They are places where you could be affected by lack of breathable air, extremes of temperature, gas or dust, or loose powders or liquids that might engulf you. Before entering, you should know what the hazards are and how they will be controlled. You'll need a permit to work. How can you safely access and egress? Is there adequate ventilation for the work to do, like welding, painting? Is there adequate lighting? A safety plan should be in place to rescue an injured person. A safety attendant staying at the entry point should monitor all activities near to and within the location, but should under no circumstances enter the confined space. Almost all workers who die in confined spaces are trying to rescue other workers who fainted due to lack of oxygen or exposure to toxic gases. Don't just step in. Stop and think. A trained rescue team with breathing apparatus and other suitable PPE should be on standby. Throughout the job, there should be constant visual or voice communication between the safety attendant and the persons working inside the confined space. Ensure there is adequate ventilation. And ensure you have a personal gas monitor. Be aware that disturbing sludge or water on the ground may release toxic gases. Oxygen levels should be constantly monitored, especially if hot work is taking place. Barriers should be placed around all entry points to keep others away, and only authorized and trained persons may enter a confined space or act as a safety attendant. Are you prepared?
Yes, guys.
Sir, I have a question.
Yes, please.
What's NSI? What's mean? Again?
NSI,
ANSI.
NSI, American National Safety Institute.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what is LOTO? LOTO or hazardous energy? See, any form of energy become hazardous when it is dangerous for human. There are different forms of energy we are occupying all the time. Sometimes we are having kinetic energy, when we are moving. Sometimes we have mechanical energy when we are moving the machine. Sometimes we have electrical energy. We are dealing every day with the electricity. Sometimes we have pneumatic, for example, when there is a hot oil, air is there, pneumatic, hydraulic, which consists of hot oil. Uh, Sometimes we have, heat energy. So energy is available all the time with us. We are dealing with the energies, different kind of energies all the time. But if this energy is in such an amount that it becomes dangerous for the human, we call it hazardous energy. And most of the time, the people who are involved in the maintenance activities, they are the one who are associated with this hazardous energy, because those people who are involved in the operations, their job is to turn on and turn off the machine and dealing with the machine when the machine is operating. Definitely it's also a technical job, but those people who are involved in the maintenance of activities, so sometimes if you see in the companies, they have to turn off half part of the machine and half part is remain open. They are involved in the testing, they are involved in the commissioning. So their job or their life is always at risk, more than as compared to those people who are involved in the operations or the management side. So they are dealing with hazardous energy, and sometimes if the stored energy is released, it can cause you very bad injury. So for this purpose, we need to have energy control program. What is energy control program? Energy control program is the set of our written policies and procedures. uh, it will be developed by our safety department to prevent injuries to workers due to the unexpected startup of machine, equipment, or release of the stored energy. Have you seen that when you are turning off the fan is still, it's going to be, revolve. It goes down slowly, 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 and it's going to stop. When you are trying to stop the car, it's not like you will apply the brake and it will be stopped in a very, very limited time, or in a very short time, within 1 second. It's not like the case. Why it's not like the case? Although you have turned off the switch, you have turned off the, you know our all the power, but still the fan is going to stop very slowly. So this
because it
case,
have
sorry.
because it have potential energy, you are asking.
Yeah, because it has stored energy available, right? It has the stored energy available. So that's why, until unless this stored energy is going to be released, the the equipment is not going to be turned off. When you are working on big lines of production, and you are going to stop this big line of production or conveyor, they are not going to stop immediately. It takes some time. Similarly, when you are going to start something, it's not going to start with full potential at once. It takes some time. So when we are dealing with the energy control program, we are basically trying to focus on all the sources or the potential sources where the unexpected energy is possible. As I told you, especially when we are dealing with the maintenance activities. So most of the time, stored energies these are possible at that time due to unexpected startup. Logout, tagout. How many of you have logout, tagout in your companies? Does anyone have the logout, tagout system?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So electrical people, they can please guide us that what is lockout and tagout and when we are going to apply.
Have any maintenance work on our electrical equipment, then we're going to apply this system, Lockout tagout.
Lockout, tagout, exactly. Very good. Lockout, tagout is also a administrative control which we are going to apply. Uh, Most of the time, it is being used for electrical purpose, but we can, ideally it should be applied on all the maintenance activities where the sources of energies are possible, where the chances of uh, where the chances of releasing the stored energies are possible. So logout tagout is a very good control. We are going to apply the logout and tagout in order to make sure that no any other person shall start the equipment or machine or the panel switch when you are working on this machine. Sometimes it happens that the lines are very big. One control panel is available on one side, the other control panel is available on other side. You are a maintenance supervisor, you have made the machine turn off, and then you are working inside the machine, and by the time any of the operator has arrived and he has turned on the machine. So to avoid this kind of miscommunication, we are going to apply the lockout tagout. So lockout tagout refers to the specific practices and procedure to safeguard employees from unexpected energization or startup of machinery and equipment, or the release of hazardous energy during the services or maintenance. Uh, we need to train our people in order to learn about when we are going to apply the lockout and what are the conditions and situations where we are going to apply the lockout. If you see these tags, these are a very good example of tag out. These are sometimes we are using the lockout, sometimes we are using the tag out. Ideally or highly recommended is to use the lock. When we say lockout, which means that it's a lock, physical lock we are going to apply, and the key will be with you or with the authorized person. And this lock is not like it everyone they have their own lock, but it will be available with the trained staff, only with specific staff of maintenance people who are responsible for the maintenance of the machine. They are going to apply the lock and the key is remain with them. S- Sometimes if the lock is not possible, then you are going to apply the tag out. On the tag out, sometimes you have the caution tags. Sometimes on the tag it is written clearly that who has the key available, or to before turning off this tag or before removing this tag, please contact this person. So the person name and contact number is available. So if anyone they want to remove this tag, they have to contact the relevant person and then they can remove the tag, right? What is energy control program? Energy control program consists of three core components, which includes energy control procedure, the procedure which we are going to design. For example, our lockout tagout includes scope, purpose, authorization, rules and techniques to be utilized for the control of hazardous energy. And then inspection, periodic inspection we are going to do whenever we are going to apply the lockout tagout. As I told you before, also in the permit to work, when you are going to issue the permit of work, it's not enough. Time to time you have to make the inspection. So periodic inspection, and then employee training and retraining. With the passage of time we need to make the refresher for our employees. For example, if they are it's first time or they are fresher and we are going to make them responsible, we need to train them formally on lockout tagout program, on our energy control program or energy control procedures. Then we are going to give them the authority to apply lockout and tagout. Logout and tagout, we have already discussed the due to unexpected energization, for example, pneumatic, chemical, thermal, or any other forms of machine. Maintenance people are the one who are the most, affected due to this logout and tagout. Yes, steps of hazardous energy control procedure. How to control the energy control, hazardous energy control. How we are going to control the hazardous energy. What are the steps? Number one step is the prepare for shutdown, and then shut down the machine. Disconnect or isolate the machine from the source of energy. Whenever you are going to turn off the any of the equipment or any of the machine, and you are just going to turn off by means of the button, then it might be possible that still there is some stored energy available. So ideally we need to disconnect or isolate it from the source of energy, because in our sockets there is still current is available. So if the plug or the switch which is still available and you have just turned off the button, it might be possible if there is a leakage in current, so it will be working as a stored energy and you can have the unexpected startup. So whenever you are working on machine, or whenever you are cleaning the machine, or you are dealing with maintenance activities, we need to isolate the machine from the source of energy, which means that we need to take out the plug, we need to take out, we need, if the circuit breakers are available, we need to make them circuit, by means of breaker, we need to make them turn off. Then apply lockout and tagout devices to the energy isolation devices. Because why? So nobody can open this if you are not available directly on the machine. As I told you, sometimes the panels are at a different location and machines are at the different location, and in the panel room you will find that there are multiple machines panels are available. So to avoid any kind of miscommunication, to avoid any kind of mistake, we are going to apply our lockout or tagout. Release, restrain, or otherwise render safe all potential hazard stored or residual energy. If possibility exists for accumulating of hazardous energy, regularly verify. Remember, we discussed that we need to make the inspection. We need to make the inspection. So these kind of things are uh, not going to be avoided. Are going to be avoided. So there is no reaccumulation of energy. Verify isolation and de-energization of machine. Whenever we are going to uh, apply our energy control procedure, we need to isolate and de-energize the machine. After this, we need to verify that if it is being done, if it will be, ideally it should be done by another person, and sometimes you can also do verify by physical inspection that we have applied all the control. Yes, guys, any question?
Thank you, sir.
Okay, you can see these are some of the example of lockout tagout. This is the lock, physical lock they have applied, and when the lock is not possible, then they have applied the tag. The problem with the tag, that sometime if you are going to apply the tags on open atmosphere, this tag with the wind speed, it will go out. So you need to apply the tag with a reliable source. Otherwise, apply the lock. There are some other different kind of locks available in the market. In companies, mostly the maintenance department, they have the full kit of locks. You can see for the gate valve lock, for the electrical plug lock, fuse lock, so these are all available in this kind of boxes. So you can apply, and you can see the keys. One key remain with the maintenance operator or the technician who is working on the machine, and one in the maintenance department. So if anyone wants to have it, they can contact and they can take. We have already discussed about the tag. Okay, so what are the 6 steps of hazardous energy control procedure? Steps of hazardous energy control procedure. We just discussed.
Prepare
Shut
for
down the machine.
Prepare for shutdown.
connect or isolate means of breaker.
Shut down the machine.
Yeah, shut down the machine. Verify.
Prepare for shutdown.
Disconnect the device by means of isolator or breaker.
Good.
Repeat.
What are the main
Shut
components
down.
of energy control program? Yeah, I know you all know, mashallah. 6 steps are there. So energy control program components. Remember, we discussed 3 components of energy control program.
Procedure, inspection, and training.
Procedure, inspection, very good, excellent. Procedure and inspection and training and retraining of the staff. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Good. Let's have example of lockout tagout. Can you see the screen
Yes, sir.
and the sound?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, let's have a 10 minutes break and then we will continue after Salah, inshallah.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yes, guys, available?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Our next topic is about machine guarding. Why we need to guard the machine?
Because the machine is dangerous in our life.
Yes. Machine is dangerous. Machine definitely, when depending on the criticality of that machine are the dangerous, but we need to cover or we need to guard especially those parts which are moving, right? And those people who are working on the machine, they are the one who are the most affected by means of machine accident. Remember, in our lockout tagout hazardous energy, we discussed that those people who are working on the machine as maintenance, they are the one who are at high risk. But when we are discussing the machine guarding, it's not the person who is involved in the maintenance, it's the person who is the operator of the machine or the technician of the machine who is working on the machine while the machine is in operation condition. They are the one who are at high risk. So any part of the machine which is rotating, any part of the machine which has the sharp edges, any part of the machine which comes in contact with a person and it can cause them injury or ill health or any other kind of possibilities are there, we need to cover them. We have seen it's a very general, my observation that in many companies you will find out of 10 operators, at least one of the operator has half or one finger they have they have lost as an amputation while they were working. When you ask them since how long you're working on the machine, he will say like 20 years, like 25 years, like 30 years I'm working on the machine. And this is one of the accident which I faced at the start of my career or during my career. So sometimes when we are doing the risk assessment, we ignore machines. We do the risk assessment very good for the activities, we do the risk assessment of our infrastructure, but when we are talking with the machine, we need to take special considerations to cover the or to make the guards on the machine, because they are very dangerous for the people who are, because operator is the one who is spending the whole shift with the machine. And when we are working on one activity, definitely our hands are going to be move, our body is going to be moved. So by mistake, if any of the our body part including hands or legs or any other body part is going to touch the open area of the machine, then it's going to be have a very dangerous accident. So that's why all the moving parts of the machine and the rotatory part of the machine are, we need to be guard them. We have seen that in companies they have the machine guard audit system, that every 6 months, like every quarter, they are just doing the audits for machine guarding. They are going to check that if the guards on the machine are available, if they are according to the need, if they are user friendly or no. Sometimes what happens that we apply the guards on the machine, but it makes the operation more difficult. So due to this difficulty in operation, our operators, whenever they see that nobody is watching, or whenever they get chance, or whenever the supervisor is forcing them to make more production, they are going to bypass this machine, because if they think whenever we have the guards, which means the machine is going to be stopped time to time. When we say guard, it doesn't mean the physical guard only. Our sensors are also guards. Our other vibrators are also guards. So guards could be made up of plastic, guard could be made up of fiber, guards could be steel guards, depending on the design, depending on the convenience. We are going to use different kind of guards on different machines. So where the mechanical hazards occur, at the point of operation, where you are performing the task, power transmission apparatus, from where you are getting the energy, for example, flywheels, pulleys, belts, connecting rods, coupling, cams, spindles, chains, cranks, and gears. Other moving parts, for example, our those auxiliary parts which are not directly involved in the machine, but they are working, they are as a auxiliary. For example, cables, for example, sockets, for example, some other turn on and off buttons. These are all our other moving parts. Hazardous mechanical motions and actions, a wide variety of mechanical motions and actions may be present. Hazards to the worker. These can include movement of rotating members, reciprocating arms, moving belts, meshing gears, cutting teeth, and any other part that impact or shear. So these are all the areas which are possibly to cause any accident in the machine. So we need to cover these. And as I told you, while we are covering these, we need to be very careful. We need to check the operability of the machine as well. Where are the mechanical hazards occur? What are the mechanical hazards? Mechanical hazards include cutting, shearing, severing, crushing, entanglement, drawing, impact, stabbing, friction, or high pressure in fluid injection. Starting with crushing. Crushing is that one part of the there are two moving parts. One part is fixed and the other part is moving, and your body will come in between these two. For example, we can see this example, and similarly the example of crane. For example, a crane having the load in it, and while they are carrying the load from one place to another during the displacement activity, if the load is hanging, is swinging, and it is going to hit you, we are going to call it crushing. So in crushing, the movement is to and fro, right? To and fro, for example, left, right, not the rotatory. So one part is fixed and the other part is to and fro motion, and you or your body part will become crushed in between these two parts. We call it crushing. Similarly, we have shearing. Also here one part is fixed, but instead of to and fro motion, the other part is going to be rotate. So our finger or our thumb is going to crush in between these two parts, which is one is fixed part and one is the rotatory part. Then we have cutting or severing. When we are doing the cutting activities, for example, if you can see these kind of examples in the carpenter shops, you can see these kind of examples, those who are working with aluminum sheets, these are very common. So they have very sharp, or they have very very dangerous knives or the blades, which can cause the amputation of the body part. They can easily cut any of the body part which is going to come in contact with them. Entanglement is one of the common accident which is going to be happening in companies time to time, and that's why companies they don't allow the loose clothing. They allow they to wear the coverall, to tied your cuff all the time. So these are due to the entanglement, because these loose body, these clothing which is with our body, this clothing can come in contact with any of the rotatory path if it is not covered, and it will cause us entanglement. See, these terminologies again, we can also use the simple words, but since we are doing the course which is a specialized course, so it's good that we are going to use the accurate or good terminologies or industrial terminologies while we are making the risk assessment, while we are doing the inspection reports, while we are talking with any of the our management. So instead of using the simple words, we should use the technical terminology, so they will be aware that you have the knowledge about the industry. Drawing or trapping. In drawing and trapping, it's same like the one part is rotating, but here the other part is not fixed. The other part is also moving. So one part is rotating, the other part is moving like to and fro, and your hand and your or finger will come in between these two body parts. We call it in between running nips, right? Here, the chance that your body part will come, it's here, right? Or if you are operating from here, it can come, possibly it can come here. Impact. Impact is, in simple words, we can say it's a slab, right? The slab can come from anywhere. So while you are working with cranes, while you are working with, while you are working with robots, they have the fixed programming. And if you are unaware of their movement, if you are unaware of the area where they are going to move, then you can get impact by them and they can hit you from, they are, because they are the fix. So we have to take care for our movement, for our position. So we should not come, in their cross-sectional area, so we can get the impact. Similarly, we have stabbing or puncturing. Is sometimes we have seen that while we are working on lathe machine, while we are working on a grinding machine, this metallic chips, or we also call them swath, or sewing machine needle, abrasion wheel fragments, nails from a nail guns. These are possible, and they are going to cause us puncturing or stabbing in our body. They are going to puncture. So remember, we discussed that routes of entry. One of them is the puncturing. So due to this, these kind of chips, metallic parts, they are sharp. When they are small, when they are coming out with a high speed, they can act as a needle. They can act as a very sharp edge for us, and they can also make us injured. Friction or abrasion. Friction or abrasion, whenever we have the conveyors, we can see that if you are going to put your hands here, you will find friction. Whenever you have the parts which are going very fast, if you are going to put your hand in between there, it will cause you friction. And due to this friction, we have the bruises are possible. Bruises are very common due to the friction. You can have more than bruises, but most of the time we have seen that whenever our body part is going to come in contact with the conveyor or these kind of activities, we have the abrasion or friction mechanism. What are the requirements for safeguard? Guys, any question from mechanical hazards? Is there anything which still not clear?
Okay. Clear.
Okay, good. So requirements for safeguard. What are the requirements for safeguard? The first thing, what we need to do, prevent contact. We need to prevent contact, that any of our body parts should not come in contact with the moving parts. Secure. We need to secure the machine. We need to secure the worker as well. We need to provide them physical barrier. So by mistake, they are not going to touch, or they are not be able to touch the machine parts. Protecting from falling objects. Whenever you are working in a place where there is a chance for falling objects are available, then we need to avoid these kind of activities, or we need to cover these kind of activities. So anything could not fall on the machine itself. When anything, for example, some nuts or bolts or anything should, if the cranes are moving, so you need to avoid the crane movement over the machinery. It may cause falling of any pieces or parts inside the machine. Create new hazards. Very important point, as I told you just a while, that we need to install. Sometimes, for example, you as a safety engineer, you have identified that these are the rotatory parts, these are the moving parts in the machine. You need to cover. So who is going to cover this? Our maintenance department is going to work on it. And if they will cover everything, then the operations will become difficult. Sometimes when you are covering with the incorrect type of guard, or if the position of the guard is incorrect, then it will create another new hazard. For example, you have put the guard, but due to this guard, there are some sharp edges which are coming due to these guards. There are some needles, there are some wires, there are some other parts which are going to produce new hazards. Sometimes, as I told you, they are going to interrupt in the production. The production is not possible. I have seen when I used to go to Coca-Cola company for their audits that the glass bottles, the disposable bottles, they are going to produce on a rotatory machine. So in 1 minute, it's like more than 100 bottles is going to fill, and then they goes to the they are going to the conveyor. So due to this rotating machine, sometimes when they are using the used bottle, although they make the inspection, they make it full sanitized, and then they are going to use these bottles, but it might be possible that this bottle is going to have burst. So in case of bursting on the production line, sorry. So in case of bursting on the production line, the operator are not going to stop the machine because it's a continuous plant. So they are going to take out the pieces because it's a glass, so it's going to be spread on all over the line. So they are going to take out the pieces when the machine is in the operation condition. So we give them the finding, and they install the guards on the they install the sensors. So whenever the operator is going to have his hands or his finger near to the machine is going to stop. But then after some time, they realize that due to this activity, many times the machine is going to be stopped, which is causing them too much production loss as well, because they have limited time, and due to the seconds of difference, the number of bottles which are going to be filled, they are going to be reduced. So then they have put some other programs. They have installed the high speed machine, and it was by design, it has the guards available. So there was very less chance that the bottles are going to be burst, and they had applied more controls in the inspection of the bottles, because if the bottles will a cracked bottle will come, definitely it's going to be burst. Allow safe lubrication. Sometimes when we have the mechanical machines available, we need to make them lubrication on daily basis or start of shift. So in this case, what we are going to do, we need to make the guards in such a way that the lubrication becomes easier for the operator. For example, if the guard is full guard is in place, we can have small holes on the guard, so the lubrication is possible. Or we can use some stick type the bottles which have very sharp nozzles, so the lubrication can become possible to the areas where there is no need to remove the guards. But sometimes at the start of shift, the operators, they take out the guards and they are going to clean everything, and then they are going to start. So this is a time period which is being allowed by the production, that okay, for 10 minutes you can have a startup activities just to check if the machine is working fine, and to have the cleaning and lubrication of the machines. Any question?
Not yet.
Okay, good. So what are the classification of safeguards? Number 1, guards. Number 2, machine. Number 2, devices. Number 3, location, distance, potential feeding and ejection system, and then miscellaneous aids. So whenever we are going to apply the machine guards, another thing which we need to do is to provide the training. Human behavior is the main problem. Still, the human behavior is the main problem for the safety. Even if you have very state-of-art machine, even if you have very state-of-art control, until unless we are not going to work on the human behavior, the accidents will remain possible. The near misses will remain possible. So that's why in the field of safety, since last couple of years, there is the terminology called BBS, behavior-based safety. This BBS program for the companies are very necessary now to apply. Especially this program is not for those companies who are at the initial stage for safety. This program is for those companies who have already a very good system of safety. They have a very good system of risk assessment. They have covered everything. They have the good machine guarding and regular meetings. But now this is the time where they have to check the behavior of the people. Why the accidents are still going to be occur when we have provided all the sufficient controls. So the new terminology which has come in last couple of years is called BBS, behavior based safety, which is basically we are working on the behavior of the people. We are going to observe the workers for some time, and then after his observation for some time, we are going to see what is his behavior towards safety, what is his behavior towards the work. So then we are going to work on it. So the training is very necessary for using the machine guards. Otherwise, again, there will be a chance of accident. What are the major hazards of machine?
Cutting, crushing, pushing.
Very good.
Hearing.
Give some examples of mechanical hazards. Major hazards of machine are not crushing, cutting. These are the examples of mechanical hazards. Hazards of machines are at, these are the point of operation, power transmission apparatus, other moving parts, hazardous mechanical and hazardous mechanical motions and actions. Right?
Contact.
Yeah, let's start with our next module. Welding and cutting. Welding and cutting. Welding and cutting are hot jobs or cold jobs?
Hot work.
Hot jobs, hot job.
Do we need permit to work while we are doing the welding and cutting?
Yes, sir.
Very good. So we are going to discuss some precautions while we are doing the welding and cutting. So one of the equipment which we are always going to use while we are performing the welding and cutting activities is the gas cylinder. So what are the requirements for gas cylinders? Compressed gas cylinder shall be legibly marked. You can see that we need to have the clearly marked that what is the material inside. You can see oxygen. It could be done by means of full name. It could be done by means of a commercial name, and it could be done by means of only the symbol. But it is a necessary requirement by OSHA to have legibly marked for the purpose of identifying the gas. We need to keep away those flammable materials from the radiators and the sources of heat. Stored in a well-protected, well-ventilated, dry location, and at least 20 feet away from high combustible material. Because if there is any leakage in the gas cylinder, then we need to avoid it. That's why it must be available in a well-protected and well-ventilated. In case if there is any small leakage, so it can be ventilated rather than it could be accumulated in the same area, and then it will cause any kind of accident. Empty cylinders shall have their valves closed. If you see, most of the time when you are going to purchase or you are going to take the refilled cylinder for your home or for your kitchen, so there is a white seal available. So the new cylinders are already sealed, but when it becomes old, not with our home type cylinders but with the commercial cylinders, you will find they have the cap available. So when the cylinder become empty, we need to put the caps on them. If you see, there are two parts. One gas cylinder consists of two parts. One is the shell, and then one is the neck, from where we are going to connect the our the gas cutting equipment or any of the pipes or nozzles. We are going to connect from here. So if there is any leakage, if this area is not being connected properly, so the leakage are always possible. So we need to have very careful considerations while we are connecting our hose pipe or the gas pipes with our gas cylinders. You can see 20 feet away from the combustible material. Welding hazards and precautions. There are number of hazards which are associated with the welding. The main hazards of welding are radiation from the arc in the form of ultraviolet rays, flying spark and globules of molten metals, electrical shock, metal flames, and burns. Let's discuss about radiation. Radiation from the arc is the hazardous to our eyes because it has eyes should be protected from radiation from the arc by using an arc welding helmets or face shield with approved lenses. The radiation is very much high that long exposure or even short-term exposure when there is a welding is going on, we can have the temporary blindness or permanent blindness. If there is a welding in your company or in your home and you are going to see this welding for couple of minutes, it might be possible without any goggles or face shield, you can have the temporary blindness. Arc flash, when possible, shield arc welding operation so no man can accidentally look directly into the arc or have it shine or reflect into his or her eyes. We have seen sometimes in the companies when they don't have a big setup available, they have the workshop available. So in this workshop, it's a shared workshop between the mechanical, electrical, and instrumentation department. So the small parts which they are going to do the weld, they are also doing the welding in the same time while the other people are also performing their tasks. So in this case, the possibility of the exposure is not only with the welder, but other people are also going to have the exposure. So in companies, we suggest them to have the at least you need to have a separate compartment available within the same workshop, which can have like fire resistant cloth. Right, we can make this compartment by means of fire resistant cloth. So in this compartment, we need to have a proper ventilation system available whenever the operators are or the welder are going to perform the welding. So this will be the all the vapors, all the fumes are going to have out by means of this ventilation device. The severity of an arc flash and the time it will take to recover varied with the length of a time person was exposed. So if you are going to expose more time, you will have more impact. If you are going to expose for less time period, you will have less problem with your eyes. Another hazard with the welding is about electrical shock. Avoid the possibility of dangerous electrical shock by using insulated electrode holders and wearing dry leather and gloves. Especially we have seen on the construction side, you have very few distribution boards, DBs are there. So from these DBs or from these distribution panels, you are connecting the welding equipment, and then the cable of this welding is going like 10 meters, 20 meters, 30 meters away, and the people are going from these cables, the vehicles are going on these cables. So with the passage of time, they are going to the insulation for them is going to be damaged, right? And sometimes we keep it open like as it is damaged, but ideally we need to protect them with the proper insulated tapes, not the normal tape. There are insulation tapes are also available for the industrial purpose. We need to insulate them. Whenever possible, avoid arc welding equipment in wet or damp area because there will be more chance of electrical shock is possible. Never perform arc welding in an area that is not the well ventilated because due to arc welding there is a lot of fumes which are coming out. So in the normal in the normal situation where there is no system for ventilation, we need to avoid the arc welding. Flying sparks and molten metal. Another hazard of welding is the flying spark or the molten metal. Whenever you are going to apply the welding, there are some sparks which are coming out. They are basically the metallic parts, or they are when the welding rod is going to be burned, these are going to be coming out. So to these, the main person who is in contact with these kind of flying sparks and molten metal is your welder. So we need to protect our welder because if these are going to be touched with their clothes, and if the clothes are not the heat resistant or the flame resistant, then there is a chance that they are going to have the burning effect. And similarly cover the pockets, because if sometimes if the pocket is open, then it can goes into the pocket and it can cause the burning effect, and it's going to be stay there. Remove any flammable materials such as matches, plastic combs or gas lighters when you are going to do the welding. Wear the proper foot protection, wear high top boots with steel toe, or you can say that these are some of the PPEs which we are going to use. Because when we are going to do the welding, definitely most of the time, we cannot eliminate this activity. If the welding is needed, the things cannot be fulfilled with the cutting. The things cannot be possible with the nuts and bolts. So if we need to join some metal part, we have to perform the welding. So elimination, substitution, sometimes engineering control and administrative control we are going to apply, but still for the welder we need to have a PPE. A good control of PPE must be available in order to save the welder. So this contains a jacket or set of sleeves, gauntlet gloves, legging, spets, apron, welder headliner. So these are all the possible, PPEs which we are going to provide our welders. Gases and fumes, flux used in certain welding and brazing procedure produce the vapors that are irritating to our eyes, nose, throat, and lungs. And the problem which is going to arise due to these gases and fumes is we call it welding fume fever. If we are going to expose with welding fumes for a long time, we can have the welding fume fever. Cutting hazards and precautions. Any question from welding hazards and precautions?
What is this welding fume fever?
If you are being exposed, for example, 4 to 12 hours with the welding fumes, like you are not wearing the proper PPEs, you are not wearing the full face shield, so you can have welding fume fever. And the symptoms of welding are nausea, you will have irritating to eyes, it can also impact your throat and lungs. Cutting hazards and precautions. When we are going to do the cutting activities, we need to have following precautions available. Never place your hands or finger between the metal plates and the bed. Never place hands under the hold down or knife. Ensure all personnel is clear from the piece of being cut, because sometimes the cutting speed, the part which you are going to cut by means of cutting cutting by heat, it becomes a very much it goes with a very much speed, and it is going to fall like 50 to 60 feet away from the point where you are going to have these cutting activities. Sometimes we are doing the welding and cutting, and we ignore the housekeeping issues. We are doing the welding and cutting in the confined space. We are doing the cutting and welding in a enclosed area where the chance of fire is too much. So we need to see this thing, and also due to the cutting fumes, the welding fumes, the oxygen is going to be reduced. So the person who is performing this job in the confined space or in the bilges or in the enclosed areas, sometimes the oxygen level become very less for them, and they can have they can trap into these areas and they can get the injury, or they can become the unconscious. So while using the oxyacetylene cutting equipment, remove and tag out any interfering system, install covers, insulators, and handles before attempting to operate the plasma arc cutting equipment. So these are some of the precautions while we are going to take while we need to perform the welding and cutting. One more thing, whenever we are going to do the welding and cutting activity, one of the person which is a mandatory requirement in many companies and also required by OSHA is to have fire watch available. This fire watch, remember we discussed about the whole watch and fire watch. This fire watch is a person, he will be having a role. He will not be the part of the team who will be performing the task. He is like a referee or an umpire. He will keep his eyes on the activities, and whenever people are doing any unsafe
act, or in case if there is any problem with regard to fire, or the people are going to be trapped inside, this person, fire watch or whole watch, is going to support them to make the situation, to make the situation normalize. Or if they are being trapped, he will make sure that the retrieval line, the rescue services are available, so they can be taken out from this dangerous situation. Right, there are all these are we are conducting these kind of training for companies. For example, sometimes they have 30 people, sometimes they have 50 people who are working on the projects. So this is like 4 hours, 3 hour training for fire watch and whole watch, is just to make sure that they understand. We are going to show them some videos, we are going to explain them some rules for having fire watch and when they are being assigned as a fire watch or whole watch. Continuous exposure 4 to 12 hours to metal fumes can cause metal fume fever. True or false?
True, sir.
True. Very good. Welding smoke may cause gastrointestinal effect, that is nausea, loss of appetite, vomiting, and slow digestion. True or false?
False.
It's also true. Okay. Welding requires proper ventilation and it should be provided to welders by using oxygen.
False.
Why?
Because oxygen
Can catch fire.
Oxygen itself is a flammable gas, right? So we are not going to provide the ventilation by means of oxygen, otherwise it will also catch the fire while the people are doing the hot jobs. Okay, let's have a video which I personally like it.
So one question: why the second option was true?
Because these are also the effect which are going to be happen with the welding smoke. नहीं समझे?
स्लाइड में पढ़ा था, स्लाइड में लिखा नहीं जरा.
स्लाइड में क्या लिखा हुआ है?
Gases and fumes.
हाँ, दोनों चीजें पॉसिबल हैं, both are possible. अच्छा, can you see the screen?
No, sir.
No, sir.
So if I share, then you can see. Now?
Yes.
Now?
The following animation shows how unsafe work practices and a lack of training led to a tragic loss of life at the Partridge Raleigh oil field. The oil field had 4 tanks. One was for wastewater, 2 were storage tanks that held oil prior to sale, and a 4th larger tank, a so-called production tank, received oil from the well. A Stringer's Oilfield Services crew arrived and began work to connect a pipe between the large production tank and the nearest storage tank. To prepare for welding, contract workers removed the hatch from the large production tank to clean and air it out. They then checked for remaining flammable hydrocarbons in the tank by using an unsafe and unreliable technique, inserting a lit oxyacetylene torch to check for a flash from ignition. The big tank was in fact empty, but crude oil remained inside one of the storage tanks, warming under the morning sun. Unseen by the workers, flammable vapor from the crude oil was flowing from that tank into the other storage tank through an overflow line, and then out into the atmosphere through an uncapped 3-inch pipe. This open pipe end was just 4 feet away from where they planned to weld. In order to provide a platform for the welder, a ladder was placed horizontally between the 2 tanks. To stabilize the ladder, 2 workers stood on top of one end. A foreman observed the work from atop the production tank. The welder, who was perched on the ladder but wore a safety harness secured to the tank, began by making 2 small welds to a pipe fitting. Sparks showered from the welding process, igniting the flammable vapor that was escaping from the open pipe end. Flames flashed back through the open pipe into the storage tank, causing an explosion which blew off the tank lid and the ladder that 3 of the workers were standing on. Flames shot through the overflow pipe into the next tank, causing an even more violent explosion from the flammable hydrocarbons inside and blowing its lid off as well. The first tank lid flew a distance of 50 feet. The other traveled 750 feet through the air.
2 workers that were standing atop tank number 3 and 1 that was standing atop tank number 4 were blown off by the force of the explosion. They suffered fatal injuries as a result.
Only the welder, who had been wearing a safety harness, survived, but he suffered a broken hip and ankle. The CSB investigation identified several unsafe work practices that contributed to the likelihood or severity of this accident. Prior to welding, workers only tested for the presence of hydrocarbons by inserting a lit acetylene torch into the production tank.
Not only is this dangerous, but it's not a good way to check for flammable vapors.
The workers did not use a flammable gas detector to test for vapor, which could have warned them that dangerous vapor was flowing out of the open pipe near where they planned to perform welding. Another unsafe practice was not capping the open pipe, especially important since all the tanks were interconnected, and one contained a significant amount of crude oil.
This case is a reminder that we need to look at hazards in the area around where we're working, that equipment that may be nearby that isn't directly involved in the job that you're doing, such as welding, can have deadly consequences if you don't address the hazards.
The CSB report also noted that the use of a makeshift work platform, the ladder braced by workers standing on top of the storage tank, unnecessarily put these 2 men in harm's way. They died when they fell from the exploding tank.
Right, guys. Any question? Any question?
What should they do? Close the hole?
Sorry?
What should they do when they work?
Yeah, this is very fair. The first thing, the mistake they have made, that they were checking the activity, the gases, the presence of gases by means of torch. They should use the detectors. It might be possible when they will be using the detectors, so they will come to know that there are the atmospheric testing when they are going to carry it out by means of detector. Then they will realize that the amount of gases are too much, so it might be possible that it is not feasible for the people to work inside the tanks. So the first thing, most of the time we have seen that when the companies are going to start any operations in the tanks, for 2 days, for 3 days, they keep them open. So after making them empty, so all the volatile material, all the substance which becomes fumes or in the forms of vapor, they should come out, and then they are going to start the working. So the first thing, they should do this activity, and then there was no need for 2 persons who are on the plank. They can use the full body harness, and they can use the fixed scaffolding while they need to perform. Another thing, that in oil refineries, it's a common practice that welding is not allowed until unless it is very necessary. So most of the time, the welding activities are being done off-site. They are being done in the workshop, which is out of the refineries area, and then they are going to bring those parts or those pipes, and they are going to fix them by means of nuts and bolts only. So the main control is to eliminate. If elimination is not possible, necessary, we need to do the welding. The major hazard which we have seen, that one tank was empty but the other 2 tanks were filled, and whenever we have volatile substance like benzene, like any alcoholic substances are available in the tanks, so there are a lot of vapors. You can see these kind of vapors when you are going to filling your car tank, right? When he is putting the benzene, so while they are filling the your car benzene tank, you will find there are vapors, right? So which are coming out. So these are not the liquid, but these are vapor, but these are volatile. If you are going to have the source of ignition, that's why when you are entering on the these mahatta, these what do you call them, petrol pumps. So there are mobiles are not allowed, source of ignition, smoking is not allowed, and like that signs are available, because physically you are not going to see the petrol itself or the diesel itself, but there are a lot of volatile uh, uh, vapors are available in the surrounding or in the area where the filling is being carried out. So that's why source of ignitions are not allowed. Clear?
Clear.
Yeah, clear. Can they just can they just close the pipe?
Yes, the first thing they need to close the pipe. The ideal thing is the all tanks which are associated with this tank, they should be isolated. There should be no liquid available in the other tanks as well, because whenever you have the liquids or the volatile substances available in other tanks, definitely there are chances of vapors are there, right? So ideally there should be no need to have, the nearby tanks should also be empty. If it's not possible, then again we need to have a proper closure of that pipe, connecting pipe, which was associated with other tanks. So they can make they can fix it by means of there are the blinds are coming, so they can make the blind for it, and this pipe will be isolated. So these tanks will be isolated from the tank where they have to do the welding activity. And then inside the tank and outside the tank and the surrounding, they have to check these atmospheric testing, they need to carry it out. So if these conditions are going to be fulfilled, then we are only going to start. And again, we have seen that in the last video of confined space. In the video, if you notice, they have clearly mentioned that this will be a restricted area, and those people who are not authorized or irrelevant people are not allowed to enter in the confined space or to involve in such activity which they have nothing to do. So in case of this scaffold, if we are going to fix the scaffold, so these two people who are just for putting the weight on the pranks, they can be safe. And the person who has been badly injured, the welder himself, although he was using the full body harness, and that's why he has been saved. But the other two people, they were not using anything, any kind of PPE. So when the tanks were blown up, uh, these two people, or the supporter, or you can say assistant, they were fall down, and they have got the fatality. So welding is a very crucial activity, especially in oil and gas, especially for those tanks, especially in the confined space. It becomes more hazardous. Any other question?
Thank you, sir.
Okay, let's move our last topic. MashaAllah. Industrial hygiene. What is industrial hygiene? Industrial hygiene.
Cleanliness related to health.
It's an injury problem or ill health problem.
Ill health.
Ill health causing. Yes, this problem is causing the ill health. See, industrial hygiene, again, like ergonomic is a specialized field, industrial hygiene is also a specialized field. And in UK, in Canada, Australia, USA, they are having the bachelor's program, the master's program available in the industrial hygiene. Even in the OSHA, the most of their inspectors, OSHA inspectors, are also industrial hygienists. Unfortunately, in many of the countries, we don't have this qualification available, and that's why those people who are working in the safety, they are not focusing on the health side, because they are unaware of the requirements. Sometimes, like the people like me, my background is chemical, maybe your background is electrical or mechanical. You have done international courses, you have done work in as a safety engineer, as a safety manager in some companies. So after having 4, 5, 6, 10 years of experience, you become the manager. So
but still the qualification, it does a lot of matter, right? So if you are not qualified in terms of hygiene, in terms of health issues, you will find always difficulty in understanding these issues. And when you are applying the health and safety system in the company, your health side will always be weaker. So since there are very less people, only those people who have taken the qualification from abroad, they are the industrial hygienists. So most of the companies, they are fulfilling this requirement with the MBBS doctors. So MBBS doctor Miskin, he is also responsible for the dispensary inside the company, because big companies, they are required to have the full paramedic staff. Or if it is a big companies like Aramco Sabik, they have the refineries, they need to have in the clinic a full-time doctor available. So this industrial hygiene issues are being monitored by the doctor himself, because he has a good knowledge about the health issues, so he can manage much better than the safety manager about the health, right? So we need to focus on industrial hygiene issues. You can see that industrial hygienists are trained to anticipate, recognize, evaluate, and recommend controls for environmental and physical hazards that can affect health and well-being of workers. The important responsibilities of IH means industrial hygienists, are identifying, measuring, and analyzing workplace health hazards and exposure, which could be chemical, physical, biological, ergonomic, that can cause sickness, impaired health, or significant discomfort. So these are the main responsibilities of industrial hygienists. We need to focus on health issues in our companies. So that's why we need to have the people available, the experts available, who are having the expertise in health side. Now we have seen that the companies, they are having when they are meeting the HSE, you will find many safety engineers, but 99% of these safety engineers, their basic qualification is not the safety. But mashallah, I have seen many of the Saudi guys, they have taken the training from us. They have been qualified in occupational health and safety from USA or from Australia, and mashallah, they are working in companies, and they are performing very well in the field of health and safety, because they have learned like 4 years, 5 years as health and safety as their main subject. So they have much better knowledge than any other people whose base qualification is not the health and safety. So, but one thing again, even they are bachelors in health and safety, but still they have to take these international courses, because in the companies, when you are going to apply the standard, you have to take the training for these standards. For example, the qualifications like OSHA, IOSH, NIBOSH, these are international qualifications which are being required by the industries, and these qualifications are going to give you the idea about the regulations which you are going to apply in the company, while the other theoretical things you will get in your graduation program. Similarly, like if you are a mechanical engineer, it doesn't mean that from tomorrow you can work in the machinery, right? If you are a chemical engineer, it doesn't mean that from tomorrow you can work on all the chemical processes, or you can run the refinery. Refinery is also a chemical process. So you need to have more learning, you need to have more experience. So most of the you can see that 40% of OSHA compliance officers are industrial hygienists. Indoor air quality. What is indoor air quality? Whenever we are working in the companies, we need to have 2 types of air quality monitoring of, as required by Royal Commission, Yambu and Jubail. We need to monitor indoor air quality when we are working in a company which is involved in the production of hazardous substances, or where the source, where the emissions are coming out for hazardous substance. So we need to monitor indoor air quality, and we need to monitor the outdoor air quality. Indoor air quality contains effects like due to the inadequate ventilation, moisture intrusions, and they can lead to the mold growth. I have seen in textile companies, the process itself, it requires the moisture when they are when the manufacturing of cloth is going on. So some of the quality of cloth, they require to have the place with moist atmosphere. You need to provide them. So in this situation, those people who are working in these departments, they become sweating all the time. It's a very problematic condition for those people who are working in these departments. So they always have rotating the shifts to avoid more exposure at one time. So due to these moisture, the molds are possibly to grow. Sometimes there are some other processes, for example, in the manufacturing of cigarettes, when they are going to wash the tobacco, it's also a very moisturizing activities, and due to this steam washing, the atmosphere of this place become too much humid, and again it's a very dangerous for the people, and also, and not only for their physical health, but also it's dangerous because the molds are going to be growth. When the mold are going to have the growth, definitely they can also enter into our body, and they can have adverse effect. So the many factors can affect the internal air quality, which includes poor ventilation, problems controlling temperature, low or high humidity, or recent remodeling. What is remodeling? Whenever you are going to change the design of your building or your building or infrastructure, and you have closed the ventilation paths. So for example, if you have removed the windows, if you have reduced the HVAC system, so these are going to have the severe impact on the temperature. These are going to have the impact of humidity. Have you seen in the offices when we have HVAC system, we also call it HVAC system or HVAC system, there are two air conditioners are there. I mean, two windows are there. One is giving you the cold air, right? While on the other side there is another window which is sucking the air from the room, the same room. So one is in and one is out. So this is a circulating HVAC system. But in our homes, when we have the air conditioner, this is only one side. This is only coming in and in. There is no passage, or there is no system for sucking the air. So that's why sometimes if you are I'm talking about my personal experience. If there is only AC is turned on in my room and there is no fan, so after some time I don't feel comfortable, right? I feel that there is a problem with my breathing system, so it becomes more humid. So only cooling is not enough for our body. We need to have also a ventilation system available, which is going to make the circulation of air in and out. And for this purpose, if you don't have the fan available, you can just open a small window, so the air is not going to be stuck inside, and some fresh air will be coming from the window as well. So anyway, indoor air quality is very necessary to monitor, and due to this activity, the employees are getting adverse impact on their health. Then we have outdoor air quality. For example, we have the industries, we have the vehicle, we have the dust emission, we have the agriculture practices. So all these areas are causing the pollution in the atmosphere. So these are called outdoor air quality. The main pollutant which are contributing for outdoor air quality are our carbon dioxide, which is coming out of the transportation or any source of emissions, sulfur dioxide, NOx, SOx, lead, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, ground level ozone issues. So these are all our harmful source which can affect on the human health. Because why human health? Because it is going to have impact on the environment, and human, animals, plants, we are all part of the environment. So ultimately they are going to have effect on us. Have you seen now before there was less time, there was a fixed time for the rainy season, for the winters, but now with the passage of time in many areas, you will find that the rain is unexpected, right? Sometimes you don't find the rain for number of years. This is all due to the outdoor air quality when it becomes disturbed, when we are going to disturb the natural species, when we are going to disturb the natural environment, then these kind of effects are possible. That's why we need to have more and more forest. We need to have more and more plantation. So when we are, because when we want to become modernized as a nation, when we want to become modernize in terms of technology, definitely the source of emissions will always be there. You cannot reduce. That's why internationally and nationally the parameters for these pollutants are being defined. We cannot make them zero. The only way to make them zero is to close the industries, to close the cars. For example, have you seen in many of the cities, the pictures are coming that this is the New York, which has lot of pollutant all the time. You can see the fresh atmosphere here. Similarly, if you go, if you are in Jeddah, Sanaiya, or Riyadh, Sanaiya, or Yambo, Jubail, you will find more pollutant as compared to if you go to Al Kharj, if you go to Rabigh, if you go to some small cities which are, if you go to Abha, these are small cities which are away from the industrial estates. So the atmosphere there is very healthy, right? So that's why people, they take the break and they are going to farmhouses. They are going to have the they are going to for Abha or Al Jof, or mashallah Al Jof. I used to go Al Jof for different companies, very good agriculture sites. So outdoor air quality is also very important to maintain, otherwise it will affect on the overall environment, and ultimately our focus is on the human, so it is also going to have effect on human, right? Any question, guys?
Yes, sir.
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, sir.
Chemical hazards we have already discussed yesterday in the NAPO video. Toxic high dose can cause you death or serious ill health problem. For example, potassium cyanide. In movies, have you seen when the hero or heroine, they have problem with the villain, they are going to give them something blue. This blue thing which is going to add in
Sir,
the,
but cyanide can kill us.
yes. तो नीला तोता है, नीला तोता वो मारने के लिए तो देते हैं, just to kill them. That's why they are using the poison. आपने सुना नहीं, देखा नहीं films में?
हाँ, बहुत देखा.
They are just going to add a small pinch of this potassium cyanide, and whoever going to take this khalas in lab. So then we have harmful, for example, cleaning agents. We have cleaning agent, at least if we don't have potassium cyanide in our home, but at least we have the cleaning agents available, right? So which are harmful if these are being inhaled or swallowed, especially by kids. I have seen one of the risk assessment, they includes the cleaning agents in the exercise which I gave you as homework for the risk assessment.
I think they say that they can make cyanide from apple seeds.
Yes, it's also possible. Irritant can cause the inflammation of skin or mucous membrane. For example, if it goes into eyes and lungs, it can cause the inflammation. If the exposure is long, for example, ozone, carcinogenic, C for carcinogenic, and you can see the symbol of carcinogenic is also like C. So asbestos, remember we discussed yesterday about asbestos, which is coming, one of the source of asbestos is the construction sites or the demolishing sites. It has lot of asbestos particles available, so this can cause carcinogenic, but it's most of the time it's not the rapid effect, it's a chronic effect. Reducing the exposure, when we are going to do we are going to reduce the exposure to the chemicals or the hazardous substance, again we need to apply our same elimination, substitution, engineering controls. We can have the local exhaust ventilation system, which is also our administrative control. We can have journal or dilution ventilation system. And finally we need to use the PPEs. Most of the time this local exhaust ventilation system you will find in your laboratories or where the fumes are possible. on those places we are going to use these kinds of controls. Forms of biological agents. How many forms of biological agents are there? 3 forms of biological agents are there. Fungi, right, or fungus. Then we have bacteria, and then we have viruses. Fungi or fungus are mold, yeast, and mushrooms. Most of them are harmless to human, but some can cause disease, such as fungal infection. See, in our body, we have these bacteria, we have these, fungus are also available when you are taking yeast, when we are using the yogurt, when we are eating the pizza, when we are eating many of the, bakery items which contains the yeast, right? So if it is in a small quantity, in limited quantity, they are not going to have impact on our health. But if it is in high quantity, if it is in much quantity, then they are going to have adverse impact. One of the example for fungus infection is the infection which is causing having the infection in our toe. For example, when you are using the safety shoes for long time, and with the passage of time, the steel toe, the leather which is which is pasted with the steel toe, it becomes lesser and lesser, and after some time it becomes when your shoes become old, this leather is going to be removed completely, and then your toe is going to hit the leather, right, hit the steel. So if your socks remain moisture, and you are not going to have a proper sanitization system for your own body and your shoes, this kind of infection is possible in our toes. How we are going to do the sanitization of our shoes? If we don't have the sanitizer available, then what will be the easiest way to sanitize your shoes or slippers?
Place them in sunshine.
Sunlight.
Very good, very good. This is our local technique, and a very good technique. Whenever possible, keep your safety shoes under the sunlight, so they are going to become they are going to have the sanitization, because the joggers, the other shoes, you can wash them, right, but the safety shoes you can't wash them. So we need to clean them time to time. Most of the time we are going to clean them, polish them from the top, but not from the inside. So due to sanitization, they are going to get the sanitized from inside as well due to sunlight. Then we have bacteria. Bacteria is the single celled organism that are found in vast numbers in and on our body, right? Whenever you are going to become sick, if it is not going to have some effect by Panadol, sometimes the doctors are going to give you antibiotics, right? Antibiotics. What is the purpose of antibiotics? Basically, they are good bacteria. They are also bacteria. That's why the people, they used to say that all antibiotics, they have their own side effects. Sometimes these side effects will appear immediately when you are going to use them. Sometimes these side effects are going to be appear after some time, and sometimes if your body has good resistance, then these side effects are not going to be appear. So the doctors are going to give you antibiotics to kill those bad bacteria by good bacteria, right? So this is the some diseases which are possible due to bacteria are Legionnaires disease. Legionnaire means Legionnaire is a bacteria. We also called it water loving. For example, in our HVAC system, wherever we have the moisture available, in our cooling towers, in our air conditioned lines, if we are not going to clean them, if we are not going to make them service maintenance activities, if the water is going to be stagnant, this Legionella is going to be produced. The first time this Legionella was discovered in 1990s in American nightclub when they attack, and within few minutes there was a number of casualties were there. If you want to search on Google, you can also search on the Google about the Legionella incident in USA. And then leptospirosis. Leptospirosis is the disease which comes from the mouse or rats, right? Whenever mouses or rats are crossing the area, if they are having beat, So this bacteria is going to be produced, and this kind of bacteria we find commonly in the food storage. For example, those food big chains, if they don't have a good pest management system, then the mouses are coming, the other insects are coming, and they are causing a very bad bacteria. And if the human are going to be exposed, it's not about eating. Even if you are going to be exposed, they can have the sickness. Then we have viruses. Viruses are small infectious organisms that reproduce by hijacking living cells to manufacture more viruses. They are going to multiply very fast, right? For example, we have our recent example of which virus?
COVID.
COVID-19, right? It's going to multiply very fast. Have you seen the figures? Before it was 10 persons in one day, and then 20% in one day, and then alatul 50, and then it reaches to 100. So it's going to multiply very fast. So these are our viruses. Radiation. What is radiation? Radiation is the energy that is emitted by the source. Radiation is the energy that is emitted by the source. For example, we have two categorization of radiation: ionizing and non-ionizing radiation. Ionizing radiation causes ionization that is in the material that absorb it. If it is causing the ionization, see, in both cases, material is going to absorb the radiation. If it is going to ionize this material, we call it ionization radiation. If it is not going to cause the ionization in that material, we call it, it's a non-ionizing radiation, right? We have different examples of, we can also see this acute and chronic effect. Acute means fast, it will come fast, and when you are going to apply the treatment, it will go fast. Chronic, which means long term, with long exposure. For example, if you are associated for long term to any noise, so with the passage of time, your hearing power is going to be reduced. Similarly, acute, if you are passing through a high noise area, for example, when you are coming out of the plane, aircraft, you will find that there is a lot of noise due to the aircraft engine. So, but once you are going to cross the stairs and you are going to, you are coming into the hall, after a few seconds, your hearing power become normalized. Otherwise, you don't listen it clearly for some time. So this is acute effect. But those people who are working on the aircraft, it's a very high hazard activity for them to remain with this high noise. It can have up to 120 decibel, up to 110 decibel aircraft. I remember I used to do the audits for aircraft, those companies who are supplying the fuel to the aircraft. So this activity is a very limited time activity. So you have to be available when the aircraft is landing, and by the time passengers are coming out, you have to make the refueling, right? Otherwise it will be late, and every minute is going to be charged as a rent for the aircraft, when for how much time is going to be available on the airports. So we used to have this kind of exposure of noise, and when I discuss with those people who are working in these kind of activities, they told that it's our job, we have to do. Even they are using the air muff, but still the noise is too much. It can't be controlled, because depending on the engine capability of aircraft, for example, if it's Boeing 777, it has more noise as compared to a small Boeing. If it is jet plane or fighting plane, then it will have more noise as compared to any normal plane. So depending on the design, the people are going to be exposed, and they are all the time they are having experience with the noise hazards. Ionizing radiation, for example, alpha, beta, X-ray, gamma ray. The source of alpha is the radioactive material, smoke detector and labs. Beta particle, the sources of beta particles are radioactive materials, labs and thickness gauges. X-ray, X-ray machine, baggage security scanner. In the kingdom, there is a rule that there is authority called KKR, which is King Abdullah, something like Radiation Authority, the head office in Riyadh. Those who are associated with the X-ray, for example, in hospital, X-ray attendant, those inspectors who are going to perform the NDT inspection and they are going to do the X-ray, they have to keep one device with them, right? This device is called a badge. This badge will remain with them all the time and it is going to absorb the radiation. And on each quarter, you have to send this badge to that authority. They will monitor, they will take the reading, and then they have to advise further. It's a limited quantity to which we can expose to X-ray. If the quantity becomes high, sorry. If the quantity becomes high with as compared to the prescribed quantity, then they are going to advise that for next 6 months, this person will not be exposed to the X-ray. So this kind of, and as required by the law here, you are also required to give them an extra allowance, minimum 500 real as their health allowance, because these persons are exposed to the X-ray. So this is one of the requirements. Then we have gamma ray, high energy electromagnetic radiation, which comes from industrial radiography. Industrial radiography is a technique where you are going to check the surface of any metallic tanks, pipes, that because with the passage of time, there is a possibility that the cracks will come. So if you are storing any fuel or any liquid, and the tanks are going to be cracked, especially in oil and gas sector, in petrochemical sector, this kind of industrial radiography is very common, but it is very, very dangerous to the human. I remember when I was working in my one of my last jobs, so we had the X-ray, we had the industrial radiography, and the wall of that lab was 18-inch in thickness. 18-inch thickness. Our normal block is like 5-inch or 6-inch, and in between these blocks there was a lead, because lead is the is a material which can control the industrial radiography. So it needs a lot of
gamma rays cannot.
Exactly. The gamma rays, if they are doing the inspection on site, this inspection will be done by night time and up to certain area according to the requirement of this gamma ray inspection. Nobody is authorized to come other than only the gamma ray inspector who is going to perform this task, and they are also wearing the lead lead lining lining full coverall, so to avoid any kind of exposure. Right, the effects include acute effect and chronic effect. Both are possible with ionizing radiation. For example, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, blistering, skin, hair loss, dermatitis, cataracts, which is with the eyes, reduced immune system, infertility. And chronic effect, you can see cancer, genetic mutation, birth defect. Have you seen Japan, Nagasaki? Still the kids who are born, they have problem with their eyes, they have problem with their nose, problem with their different body parts. So you can see that this birth defects, genetic mutation, these are all causes due to X-ray or gamma rays. These kind of health effects are possible. You can see the absorption power of X-ray radiation. Alpha, it can only be enter into the paper, but beta, it can cross the paper, but it cannot cross our skin. And then we have X-ray. Why doctor asks you to take the X-ray to see inside your body? Because X-ray can cross our body. Although the radiation is high as compared to alpha and beta, but it can cross our body. Otherwise, doctor, they will write to take the beta of your body, to take the alpha of your body. Like they are writing the X-ray of your body, they will write take the beta of your body. So then we have gamma ray and neutron, which are very dangerous. They can cross the cement, even they can cross the wood, and they're very dangerous to human health as well.
No.
Okay, now we have non-ionizing radiation, which includes ultraviolet, which includes visible light, infrared, and microwaves. Ultraviolet has high frequency electromagnetic radiation emitted by white hot material. For example, sunlight, arc welding, we have the radiation of ultraviolet. The main effect which can cause you both acute and chronic are redness and burns to the skin, temporary blindness, for example, photokeratitis. Visible light, frequency between UV and IR, these are the sources are laser leveling devices, laser pointer, and the health effects are temporary blindness and permanent blindness. Infrared, which can cause you low frequency electromagnetic radiation, for example, red hot steel in a rolling mill, glass manufacturing, redness and burns to the skin, and the effect are retinal burns. Microwave and radio wave, our mobile phones, microwave oven, antenna, they are causing internal heating of the skin and also stress. If you see this, especially is the kids, they are more are having more effective of the radiation hazards, especially the radio waves. Any question in radiation, in ionizing and non-ionizing radiation?
It's clear.
In ionization, you mentioned smoke alarms.
It's a kind of a detector, alarm detector.
But I think so. It's on,
Okay, noise and its hazards. Noise. What is noise?
Sound.
Sound. When you are speaking, it's
loud
what?
sound.
Lots of sound.
When you are all speaking together, it becomes
Noise.
Noise.
right. See, noise definition, it varies from person to person. For example, if you are a youngster, you like rock music, you like pop music, so this will be a noise for your parents, right? Those people who likes classical music, for them it's a noise. So, but the thumb rule for noise is that it's loud and unpleasant to ears. It's loud and unpleasant sound. So this is called our noise. Noise has both type of hazards, long term and short term. We call it temporary reduction to hearing sensitivity and temporary ringing in the ears. For example, as I gave you the example of generator, gave you the example of aircraft. When you are coming out of the aircraft and you are exposing to high noise, so after up to some seconds, you will be having ringing in your ear, like ting, like that. Long-term exposure to excessive noise include noise-induced hearing loss, that is permanent loss of hearing, or tinnitus. All the time there is ringing in your ears, right? And then stress due to irritating noises or background noise, you also feel stress. Even if you are wearing the PPEs such as ear muff, ear plug, but still you cannot, stay in high noise area, right? You will feel irritated, you will feel stress. So this is one more hazard of the noise is about stress. Now you can see that what is the level of noise with respect to time. The unit for noise is the decibel. Decibel is the dBA. Decibel is the logarithm unit. As required by OSHA, there is a different requirement from UK. UK says for 85 decibel for up to 8 hours. OSHA says 90 decibel up to 8 hours. Some companies who are applying UK based standard, so they are taking benchmark as 85 decibel for 8 hours. But those companies who are applying American standards, they take 90 as for 8 hours. You can see that as the time is going to be, as the noise is going to be increased, the time is going to be reduced. It's not the simple like the difference of 2 units. As I told you, it's a logarithm. It might be possible it's like 20% more, right? 30% more with only the change of 1 unit. So most of the time, whenever we have 90 or more than 90 decibel in any of the operations or production or wherever we are working area, we are recommended to use the PPEs. We need to control this noise by means of engineering controls and all possible controls, and PPE in these areas are mandatory to use. You can see noise monitoring, simple sound level and integrated sound level. Integrated sound level measure the noise over a period of time and give a time weighted average over that time. Dosimeter, which are connected to our body, you can see this is in the screen. This is a simple noise meter, and this also it is like integrated, and this is the dosimeter, this is the mic. So whenever this operator is going inside the generator room or the boiler room or the high noise area, they are having this thing. What is the benefit of this device is that it is absorbing the noise, and at the end of day, at the end of week, at the end of month, you will get to know that how much time you have been exposed to the high noise, right? And because this is important, because in America, in UK, in other countries, there is a regulation that if due to your health, if due to your work, your health is going to have effect, then you can claim for the some additional benefits. You can, because due to your work, your health is going to be reduced. So if your, for example, when you join the company, they have done your audiometry test. At that time your hearing power was correct, but after 1 year, 2 years, when they are checking it on the annual basis, it is going to be reduced, and they know that this is due to your job because you are working in high noise area. So they are going to compensate you with some more benefits in terms of money or in terms of other benefit, because due to the work exposure your health is going to be reduced. So that's why baseline audiograms are used as a reference. Whatever your noise, your hearing power was detected as first time, it will be considered as the baseline, and the next years, after 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, whenever you are having annual annual testing, so this baseline will be considered as the base, and up to from this base they are going to measure that how much your hearing power has been reduced. Clear? Any question? काफी मुश्किल?
Sir, can we start the exam?
Just wait for last one slide.
Okay.
This is the last slide. You have done too much, sabr. Just wait few minutes. Okay, noise control measures. How we are going to control the noise? By applying our, again, all possible controls: elimination, substitution, engineering control, administrative control. Substitute the source, perform the maintenance. Sometimes the engine is not producing much noise, but due to the lack of maintenance, lack of lubrication, there are more noise is being produced with the machine parts. So maintenance, damping, we have seen that now the rooms, they have the insulation available, so the noise is not going out, or it's going, very less noise is going to be out of those rooms having generators or any other machinery which has high noise. Modifying the process, silencing, interrupt the pathway by means of insulation, isolation, and absorption. And then acoustic haven. Acoustic haven is the small control rooms which are made up of glass or plastic, which is going to avoid the noise, because when you are working on the machine, you have to talk with the operator, you have to take the reading, you have to write the reading in the computer. So these kind of acoustic haven are now available on the production lines, so they can go and they can speak with each other, or they can have the reading with for the machines. And then finally your favorite, PPE. See, we finish our course by PPE. So see, you can see this is also wearing the PPE. Yes, guys, any questions?
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for bearing me for the last 4 days.
No,
It
sir,
was not an easy
it
task.
was our honor and pleasure.
It was honor, but at the same time, it was also irritating. Sometimes it becomes noise, right? So we will now take the break. For how much time we need to take the break? What do you suggest, guys?
20.
5 minutes?
Some
Or we can
guys are
just give it
very
right now.
impatient, right? Okay, let's have 10 minutes break. So we can start at sharp 9 and we can finish at 9.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Nice.
Sorry?
The exam is 1 hour?
Yeah, 1 hour, but I hope inshallah you can do it in 5 minutes if you are, because we are now fresh.
Inshallah, be easy. Finish.
It's easy for those who have prepared.
Inshallah.
Okay, let's have 10 minutes break and then we'll start by 9, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Be prepared. Be prepared with your room. You have to turn on the camera. And at the same time, take out your ID or Ikama. So I will just verify your name with your Ikama, right?
Okay.
Thank you so much.